But here's the deal. Much like the days of Andy Griffith and Donna Reed or whatever old family sitcom you're used to watching, after dinner there is dessert. And somehow my children and husband have become very accustomed to sitting down at the dinner table and it's lovely and we have a lovely meal, and then they all say it. What's for dessert? One of our favorite family desserts is a Victoria sandwich. You can usually find it if you've ever had high tea. You might have eaten a Victoria sandwich, and it's gonna be gluten-free because I bake all things gluten-free because I am married to a gluten-intolerant man. So for you gluten-intolerant people, this one's for you. If you know me, you know I love all things British. I have no real good reason for that other than I saw the Queen drive by when I was a small child, and I've adored her ever since. Pointless backstory. You're welcome. So we are going to be using a recipe I looked up from the BBC. We are going to be making gluten-free Victoria sponge. Now, because our recipe is from the UK, you're gonna find when you try to look up authentic recipes, you might have to convert a little, and that's okay. You can do it thanks to Google. Don't be afraid. If things are in grams, I have a scale which I like to use anyways, a digital scale to measure out flours and stuff like that. But if not, thanks to Google, you can definitely convert grams to cups and whatnot. It's okay. You can do it. I have faith in you. I have prepared all of my ingredients, measured them out, and actually I know it takes time and some people hate to do stuff like that, but honest to goodness, once the baking process begins, it's so much easier just to have everything measured, everything. I've got flour already sifted with a pinch of salt and my baking powder, and it's all done and just ready to dump in when it's time. We are gonna beat our sugar, eggs, and vanilla. And with this recipe, these need to beat up until they are nice and smooth and thick and pale in color, and they really will change in color. Now here's the deal. We've already got the oven is on. My oven, which is a gas oven, which the temperature I found out after a couple different experiments is 100% not accurate in temperature. When I bake especially, I drop the heat. So it called for 190°C, which is probably closer to about 370 something Fahrenheit. Because mine is gas and it runs hot, I am down at about 350, and I promise, just know your oven. If you have an accurate oven, go with what the recipe says, but mine is not. Know your oven. Oven is preheated, has been preheated. We are schwitzing now in my kitchen, it's so hot. Pans are nice and oiled. We have parchment paper circles inside of them to make sure our Victoria sponge does not stick to the bottom of the pan. We have our butter cubed and coming nicely to room temperature. You want to make sure for this recipe it specifies that it should be room temperature, nice and soft but not melted. Please make sure your butter is actually room temperature. It makes a huge difference in your recipe, believe it or not. Butter. Cubes of butter. Now this is about 225 grams of butter, which for the rest of us is about 2 traditional sticks. 16 tablespoons, so lots of butter, but when is that ever a bad thing? I have pre-cracked 4 eggs, which is what this recipe calls for. Now here's the deal. I heard somewhere to make sure that it's always good to pre-crack your eggs. It not only helps with making sure that there's not shell, like so if you're not good at cracking eggs and sometimes you get shell in your stuff, you can make sure that you're not dropping shell down into your mixer, but you can also check freshness and stuff like that and take out any googly bits maybe that you don't want in your cake. So these are gonna go into our mixer. They are also going to go in with a teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, so we are gonna start whipping these eggs into shape. So I want to make sure those yolks get nice and broken up, and then I'm going to start to add my sugar. You know, when the recipes say the eggs will change in color and texture, they really, really do, so watch that. They will get nice and pale and thick. This recipe says your eggs should leave, if we were to lift up this beater, the egg should leave a trail that you can see. So it's good to know. Alright, so I'm going to let these whip up for about 5 minutes. sugar and vanilla are super light, super pale, and that's what you want for this particular recipe. I'm gonna add my flour and my butter. I'm gonna get those mixed together for about 1 to 2 minutes until they're evenly combined. It's a pretty thick batter. That's not uncommon for the gluten-free situation. It's thick, but it's nice and light, and it's nice and smooth, and that's a good sign for gluten-free batter. And it smells good. We are going to post a link to the recipe that I used from the BBC, the gluten-free Victoria sponge. We are also going to post the recipe for my favorite one, my favorite recipe for Victoria sponge, which is Mary Berry's basic Victoria sandwich recipe. It's fabulous. It's my favorite one. It's the one I'm used to making, so I just thought I'd try this, see if it was good, and we're all going to find out together. Stick them in the oven, 20 minutes, and we will get them out and see what happens. I grabbed this out of the oven and it looks pretty good. It's golden brown, it's pulled away from the edges. With the Victoria sandwich, what we really need is one of them to have a really nice top. And I will show you why when we assemble it. Per the recipe, we're gonna let this cool in the pan for 15 minutes, then I'm gonna turn them out onto wire racks, peel the paper off the bottom, let them cool completely, and then I will show you how to assemble it. The cakes are cooling really nicely. They're almost there, so it's time to make the filling. Fun story, so traditionally in a Victoria sandwich, you would have simple strawberry jam, raspberry jam, blackcurrant jam, something like that, really simple. But my youngest child hates jams and jelly. Go figure, he doesn't like any kind. So I bargained with him because I had some lemon curd in the pantry, and in these quarantines you use what you have. And so I was like, what about some nice lemon curd? I'll make a lemon cream to go inside the cake. It'll be delicious. British people, I'm not sure if that is acceptable or not, but it's happening, so we'll use what we've got. So I've got what heavy cream I had in the mixer. I'm gonna get the heavy cream going, put in my lemon curd, a little bit of powdered sugar, a little bit of vanilla, and get that nice and whipped up and ready to go in between the cakes. We have a cake, our bottom layer that is cooled and it looks lovely, and it's actually my shorter layer, so we're gonna put that on the bottom. And here's the deal, so that it holds things nicely, we're gonna put it top down on the plate, voila, because that way you have a nice flat surface to put all of your goodies on. And we are gonna put just a thin, nice layer of lemon curd on this cake to give it a little extra moisture, which is very lovely. So we're gonna do that now. You do not want this to be chunky, so I did put some of this through a sieve just to make sure that it was nice and smooth, and that's what you want. Oh, gorgeous. And you know what? The beautiful thing about a Victoria sandwich is that it's a naked cake. So it is cake, center cake. So you really want your center ingredients to stick out the sides, so that it has a beautiful side profile. So you want to make sure you get that lemon curd all the way out to the edges. So we can see that little peaking of yellow, bright yellow. So get it all the way out to the edges, and that'll give it a nice moist layer, and it will also, add that extra lemony punch, which is gonna be delicious. I've been keeping this in the fridge because it is just whipped cream. We want to make sure it stayed cold, cold, so that it did not melt, because that would be tragical. So we're gonna take all of this and we're gonna dollop it in between this cake, and it's gonna be amazing. gorgeous. This is the best part, the filling. I try not to push this too much to the edges because when we stick that top cake on, especially when you go to cut it, it'll smoosh all the filling out, especially if you have cream in it. And we are going to place this on the very top. Oh my goodness, y'all, I love these cakes. They're so simple, but they're so gorgeous. And the final part is we're gonna dust the top with a little bit of powdered sugar and get a load of that. Isn't she lovely? Go ahead and make it for yourself. I promise your family will like it.